Hey guys, BBI here. I want to stop and say thanks for tuning in and checking out whatever the video is about that's about ready to come up next. If you could take a minute and hit subscribe, I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you enjoy what you've seen here, make sure to hit the like button. We'd greatly appreciate your support. Anyhow, guys, all that aside, let's get on with the show.
Everything else is broke down. Your 2x4, she does 800 watts.
Man, that's just like a Swiss watch, man.
Remember when I bought that thing?
Yeah, God, man, that was back when,
Long time ago.
Yeah, Jesus was trying to get tickets, first class tickets on the Ark and shit. That was.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen and ladies, and all the doll hairs amongst you, we're joined by Log Trucker Dave. We're going to burn through a couple boxes. We're going to do an X-Force. Dave made another X-Force, and this is a Carl built. Yeah, you heard me. We're going to do like, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? We're going to do 5 boxes here real quick. So we're on the inside of this Carl built. This is 2 driving 8. So it's 2 2879s. Oh, hey, where am I going? 2 2879s driving 8 HG 2879s. And your question, sir, was what?
Why is that little resistor burn out?
Now don't be afraid to talk in your normal pitch and voice. They'll hear you. Here, I'll bring the lapel microphone. I'll switch sides of my body so it's a little bit closer to you.
The resistor burn out on the combiner there.
Okay. And then we also notice over here.
Oh yeah.
That this resistor is burned up. And I said, well, I'm going to turn this entire endeavor that we're going to do here this afternoon and this evening into a teaching event. So everything has to be in balance. Okay. So you have your driver section over here. Let's back this up a little bit more for him. So you have your driver section over here, and the RF comes out of this, and it goes over to this, and it takes the RF and it breaks it down evenly. So 50% of the signal goes to this side of the combiner, and then 50% of the signal goes to that side of the combiner. Or one way to think about it is, RF is a waveform, right? Energy wave is a waveform. So if you take and run a line right down the middle of that waveform, the upper portion of the signal goes out this port, and the lower portion of the signal goes out the other port. Well, that RF comes out of that splitter, it comes over, and it hits this splitter and this splitter. Well, we divide the signal again. So this half of the 4-pill section, this is an amp in itself. This is an amp, this is an amp combined together. That's one section. That's an amp combined together. So if the signal that we put in here, it gets split again. So this will take the upper half of the waveform, that'll take the bottom half, or otherwise this 2-pill section will be on, this 2-pill section will be off, and then it flip-flops, and this 2-pill section will be on, and the 2-pill section will be off. It does it 27 times a second.
Wow.
Hence the frequency that we're talking on, 27 megahertz, right? Well, in the same, we have that going on here. So we have the same amount of signal coming from the driver going into each one of the 4-pill sections. As it comes out, now we're going to go and we're going to undo what we did coming in. We're going to put the signals from each one of the amp sections, the 2-pill amp sections, we're going to put it back together. So if we have one transistor like this one, it decides it's going to take a shit. Then all of a sudden we've got these 2 transistors working at full chooch, and this transistor's down a wing, right? So we've lost one amplifier device. That throws an imbalance into the circuit. What do we mean imbalance? Well, it's not matched up with this 4-pill. This 4-pill and this 4-pill are putting out different amount of RF potential, different amount of energy. So this resistor, the RF wants everything to be in balance. So this resistor here goes, oh, hey, this port's putting out a ton more energy than this port. And the RF from here tries to crawl through this resistor. Now for this combiner to work, it's got to have 100 ohms because the RF only sees half the resistance. Well, our goal is to maintain 50 ohms. Where are we dropping this out into? We're dropping it out into 50 ohm coax, little mini coax is what this stuff is.
Right.
So it only sees half the resistance. Now the resistors do fuck all for you until there's an imbalance. And once there's an imbalance, this resistor starts to get hot, takes up the imbalance in the circuit, and it's what's technically protecting the rest of these transistors from seeing a completely open, unbalanced fault. That's the reason I like to use a little bit bigger resistors. They make more smoke because it's dawned on me that most of these guys don't use watt meters and look at them and go, oh, my power fell off. I better stop keying. No, there's smoke rolling out of the box.
Yeah, it's too late now.
It's too late, right. So now you got to think this is indicative of what's going on here. The only difference is this is down a couple 100 watts. This is still making full power. So by the time we get over here, this section's making 1,000 watts and this one's making probably 500 because this section is dead. It no longer, the transistors, one pushes, the other one pulls. One of them's down. So technically this whole section quits. This thing's still trying to do its job, but it's got no paired partner with it. So the resonance of the circuit falls way out of whack, and that eventually kills this transistor as well. So over here now we're talking about, instead of a couple 100 watts that we're putting together, 250, 250, average, or 500 and 500. Now over here we're talking about a kilowatt and a kilowatt that we're putting together. And it sees an imbalance because this section is now putting out less power than that section. And once again, it gets sucked up. The difference of the energy gets displaced in that resistor.
Let me ask you that. Some of these combiners have 3 resistors.
That's because there's 3 sections. Like on a 6-pill, you're combining, instead of having it staged, this is called a stage. Stage 1, stage 2. In a 6-pill, like what you have in your truck or whatnot, we're taking a 2-pill section, a 2-pill section, and a 2-pill section, and we're bringing all of their output and bringing them together. So that's a 3-port combiner. You can also do that. The same trick is if you had a 4-pill, and another 4-pill, you can bring them all together at a 3-port combiner.
Okay. I just wonder why some had 3 and I guess we only got 1.
You know, for a lot of years, guys, they worked with just, I'm not going to lie, a lot of guys just copied Messenger and they put them in a different cabinet and they used their own combiners. So for a long time there, everybody was a 2, a 4, an 8, you know, a 16 kind of builder. They
12.
didn't. Well, no, 12's an odd duck.
That's right. 12's odd.
Okay, so until we come along with the Wilkinson combiners, which everybody commonly refers to as wagon wheel, this style, or like for something I'm building over here on the side, allowed us to take 12 sections and put them together like this.
Oh, I've seen
That's a 12-port combiner.
Yeah.
Okay. That allows us to get to the odd ducks in the universe. The 12 pills, the 6 pills, the frickin' 48 pills, that kind of stuff.
Well, 10's in that category too, isn't it?
Right.
The 2, 4, 6, 8, 10.
Right. You got
then
it.
you go to 16.
You got it. It's an odd duck.
Okay.
The advent and the input knowledge of the Wilkinson's choked RF combiner. I mean, but then you've got other combiners that look like this. That's a 4-port inductive combiner, also a Wilkinson's.
I'll be darned.
That combines RF.
I've never seen them kind before. I've seen those kind before.
So, well, that answers your question. So what we're going to do here is, because we've had 1 pill drop. That one's dead. Now, let's get down here and let's look. Let's get our exposure to where everybody else can see what the hell we're talking about. Okay, to all the pro builders out there that are trying to follow along, learn, and pick up little tips, if you have so much thermal compound around your transistor that it is literally oozing out around the transistor, you have applied too much thermal compound, and the thermal compound is acting like an insulator.
Right.
You want to put a very thin layer of thermal compound here, and all it's to take up. Think about looking at the foot of the transistor underneath a microscope. when we feel it with our fingers, it's relatively smooth, right? Well, it's not. There's little micro pits and spaces in between the metal molecules and stuff. And the same thing with the aluminum that makes up the heatsink. So you just want a very thin layer, so when you apply pressure to the transistor, most of the thermal compound is going to move out of the way, and you're going to have metal to metal contact, but it's for all them little tiny micro scratches that we're taking up with that compound. If you have so much compound underneath the transistor, like in this case here, I can literally go in with a dental pick and pull it out of here like toothpaste all the way around the transistor. You have a thing called hydraulic float. You have a thing that happens that's called hydraulic float. So the pill pocket that the transistor's sitting in the edge of the transistor, well, if you put grease in there, it acts like what? A seal.
Seal.
Right?
Yeah.
So then you go and you screw it down, and the transistor, instead of sitting perfectly flat on the heatsink,
it's not sitting like level.
So perfectly flat on the heatsink, it'll actually cup, because you're only applying pressure on the outside edges of the transistor, which will cause the ears to bow down, but the whole center of the transistor isn't making contact with the heatsink. So the only place it's making contact is out here and out here. It's hydraulic cupping. It's just like hydroforming. When you ever watch those guys on YouTube where they build all these elaborate shapes and then they hit them with a million pounds of pressure of water, and it pushes out on the inside of the ball. Okay. It's the same thing that's happening here. It's taking the transistor and it's putting a bow to it. So the center of the transistor is not making contact with the heat sink. Well, a thermal compound, yes, is a very good conductor of heat. Is it as good as having direct metal to metal contact? No.
No.
So I'm not saying that's the problem here. I'm just saying that if you have so much thermal compound where it's squeaking out around the transistors, that's usually not a good thing. And once again, for decades, we had the Toshiba transistor, which, well, let's really embrace the truth. The HGs are good because they're cheap.
Yeah.
And they're plentiful. And they're cheap. That's what makes them good.
Yeah.
Period. Full stop, end sentence. They're decent. They work well enough. But they're not as tolerant to shit as the Toshiba. I don't care who you are. You're never going to get me to change my mind. It's never going to happen. There's better parts out there.
I'm a believer in that, too.
There's better parts out there than that HG, and believe me, we're working on that over here. But
especially the Toshiba 2290.
That's a good
probably
part.
The most rugged pill there is out there. 2290.
It's all opinion.
You know,
that's all opinion. I mean, it's 2290 is a good part. So is a 455, 1446, all those kind of parts. But I haven't seen any difference, honestly, between you and me, the difference between a 2290 and a 2879 as far as what they'll put up with. SWR, voltage, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's the same platform. Internally, they're the same part. What we got to do here is we got to pull the dead pill out, obviously. Got to change the 10 ohm resistor, obviously, but we got to pull its partner transistor out.
Check it.
We got to check it and see what its gain is, and then we got to put a matched one in here. If this thing's got a gain lower than 10, we want to replace it. Slap that back in here, change that resistor, check that cap, put our flybacks in here, and we're off and down the road to running. These little disc capacitors here have a tendency to get too hot and break down. So they'll get hot, and then internally the mica pads, so there's a piece of metal, and then a piece of insulating film, and another piece of metal, and another piece of insulating film. That makes up this capacitor. Then it's dipped in this coating to keep it from being able to conduct to the outside ground and hold everything in one piece. They'll break down, and the coat and the plates will start to come apart from heat, and they'll break down internally. You can't see it from the outside, and they'll start to lose their value. So we want to check that, make it still good. Check that. I usually pull these out and I'll replace them with metal clads, high kV metal, like what these are.
Oh yeah.
They don't ever break down after that.
Oh, that makes sense to me.
But you weren't running this on sideband by chance. You're not a you're not a sideband talker. I didn't think so. Yeah. Because I can't help but notice this thing has got a sideband delay switch, but there's no bias here. And the other thing we're going to take a quick note of is this. Focus. Look, I got a studio grade camera here, right?
Yeah, I see that.
This thing's amazing, right? It's big, giant, professional camera. But this thing's made for shooting movies and guys that got f-stops and measures, and they're going to focus the thing, and the autofocus on this thing sucks.
Oh.
It sucks. I had to go get this extra monitor just so I could have the crosshairs to know where the camera's pointed, because that little screen over here, I'm sorry, my old blind eyes don't quite do it. But the crosshair is exactly where the focus ring is at, so. And then it doesn't have any shit for all for zoom. Okay, back on topic. This is supposedly a 42 amp power supply at 12 volts. A 250 amp worth of load. We'll see how it does. We'll measure the voltage, and we'll see if it's a voltage drop issue that caused this to go, or if it's something wrong with the foot of the transistor. We'll take a look at it. Okay, here we go. We're live and rolling for sound. So it's no joke. This is the transistor that we pulled out, yes? This is nothing more than a steel ruler, okay? So let's zoom on in here. Let's get ourselves some focus going on. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take the transistor that came out. We're going to lay it down on top of the ruler. And I'm going to hold it in place with my finger. You guys can see it from here already. You see it now? See that cup, the bow, and the transistor? Shouldn't be able to get that much light underneath the transistor, right? So now what we've got here is a brand new HG. See the difference?
Yeah, no light coming through.
No light whatsoever. See here, I'll even if I rock it up on its edge, it's like nothing. Okay, it's flat. Versus this. Now I say this not to make fun of any other builder, not to demean anybody, nothing. See the light just rolling underneath that thing? It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
I do this as a teaching lesson. I've been saying this now for, I'm not shitting you, Don. I did a video on this probably 7-8 years ago. So the knowledge is out there. I used to get not from this builder, not from X-Force, none of them guys. I used to get these in from a guy that's no longer in business. I get these amps in and the pills would be all blown out of them. And this is back when we were still using Toshibas, right? And I go to pull the pills out and I put new pills in and I clean the pill pockets out, put new pills in it, and the thing would run fine forever. And I'm like, why would these transistors keep blowing? Well, I had a piece of glass that I had a piece of sandpaper on. It was over on the workbench over there, and one day a transistor just made it on there, and I'm like looking at it at just the right angle, and I could see
light through it
underneath the transistor. I'm like, what the holy oh hell is that all about? And then it dawned on me, that doesn't even sit flat on the ruler there. It dawned on me that there's this thing called hydraulic cupping that's taking place, and it's literally causing the foot of the transistor to not be able to sit flat. Let's put this back in manual.
Load.
So the ears of the transistor are not touching. They're just not touching. And we can see it from here.
Oh yeah.
See a difference?
See it. Gap under that one, no gap under the other one.
So, I mean, not dogging anybody in any way, shape, or form, just simply sharing the knowledge. So now what we got to do is go clean all the slime out from underneath these pockets. We're going to put a little bit more back in there, and then we'll put this back together. But for right now, I don't think that this is making the greatest contact in the world with the heat sink. Oh well, moving on. Okay, so.
Stupid question.
Hold on a second, brother. Hold on. So I went ahead and instead of just trying to match up the transistor, I just grabbed two brand new pills and put them in there. We've been sitting here and running it, and what it boils down to is definitely got enough power supply in it. That's not a question. Those look like they were mashed on there with a hammer.
I was noticing that. That's a shitty job of smashing on there.
Okay, so let's zip over here and let's take a quick look at the watt meter. I got to slide where you're at. Excuse me, brother. So first off, preamp is working, so let's turn that back down. So now let's go over here, turn the amp in standby. Hello, 11111, hello. That's what we're putting in it for drive. This is the voltage on the inside of the amplifier. We're going to turn the amplifier on. Dead key, we're in low setting on the switch on the front of the amp. So we've got low, high. This is our resettable breaker, which is actually our on-off for the entire box. Preamp switch, and then sideband delay. So anyhow, we're just sitting here throwing a dead key now. So we're roughly 1 watt worth of drive going in. We're getting about 100 out of it. Oh, of course we're going to lay it right in the corner. That's 1,000 watts. So now we're going to go up to the 2x setting. So when this needle goes all the way to the right, it's 2,000 watts. Keep an eye on that meter and that meter right there. Hello, 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. It's working fine.
Yeah.
We went ahead and we did the metal clad cap upgrades to each one of the output 4-pill sections. But I don't know about you, Don. I'm gonna have to steal the part numbers off of this because this is legit. I mean, we're putting 200 and some odd amps worth of load on these switchers, and I would have sworn, put money down on the table that we were 1 switcher short.
Yeah.
But the voltmeter don't lie.
It's showing.
The voltmeter don't lie. So it's making the right power with 30 watts of drive, making approximately 2,000 watts ish, 1,900 so. All right, I think if this one's all fixed, we can button it up, put the lid on it. Let's move on to the next one. Sound like plan?
Yeah.
All right.
Compressor and blow it all out.
You know, I have one of those here, believe it or not.
Huh?
Said I have an air compressor with a hose and everything here.
Yeah.
So stand here and you're watching you blow on this thing. I'm like, what in the frick is he doing? Okay, so what we got here is a Dave made by Joe, Carolinas, old school way, with all the good parts in it. You know, Toshiba transistors and whatchamacalls them, who's be doobsies. Yeah, cabs. The reason this is here is because the fans weren't working, and he thought it had a thermocouple in it that would cause it to churn on and stuff. Come to find out, just one of the wires is broke off the voltage regulator. So we'll hook that wire back up and we'll see if we can get her to run. I'm pretty sure we'll get the fans to work, but it needs a bath, man. This always blows my mind though. Let's look at this here. How many amps of jizz do you think we can get to move through this 3.5, 4 foot of wire that they've got in here? You know, I mean, well, we got like 14, 18 gauge there, and that's probably about 2.5 foot of wire, foot and a half worth of wire, something like that. They got wrapped around them ferrites. You'd be amazed how much would happen if you just take out this extra 2.5 inches of wire, or just go to a bigger wire, like what I do with all the boxes that come through here. But since we're into doing mass today, and we had one that came in here that we've decided this, we got to wait for another day to do it. That's going to be a full day rebuild on that. Would you agree? On the one that we just looked at?
Yeah.
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 The things I like to do is, like, there's these vents that are along the back. You see these back here, Don? As the fans are blowing air in, air's running out of those slots and it's not going over the heat sinks. So I like to take little pieces of phenolic board and cover up those slots in the back.
So
force all the air through the whole cabinet, through the heat sink. Now the nice thing about these Joe boxes is that they're modular, right? I love the fact that you can have equal access instantly to the top and the bottom of things. What sucks is when you got to go work on them, you got to work around the sides.
Yeah.
Versus like an ICA or Fat Boy cabinet where the lid comes off, right?
Yeah.
So when you go to blow this out, remember there's 2 sides to this equation. You've got the cleanliness of the components here, but your heat sink on the bottom needs to be just as clean as well, right? So what I suggest is get a really fine tooth paintbrush like this and 91% rubbing alcohol, and it'll douche the heat sink. Because this was used in a smoking environment. I can tell by the color of the dust.
Yeah, I noticed that on the back.
Yeah, so that, believe it or not, that the oil that
Adheres
comes
to
from
the
smoking,
heatsink.
it gets on the heat sink, and then the air is not making contact with the metal. So now you're using radiated heat instead of surface conducted heat. That makes sense?
Yep.
So, I mean, in the world we live in, please note this thing was built for 16 transistors, and it's only got 8 in there. In today's day and age, that never happened. In today's day and age, they take all 8 transistors, they'd shove them up here, and then they take tape and they cover up the rest of the holes. Or back in the day, when the heatsink was cheap and everything was cheap and the parts were preferable, they would cut one stocky heatsink for everything.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. It's a plus, because now you've got all this extra heatsink to help radiate heat off those transistors.
Exactly.
So, my God, he actually made a coil. I haven't seen one of these in a long time in a Joe Built box. Usually it's like, looks like a freaking strung out slinky, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The other thing I like to do is I like to look at all the stitch work down the side. So the way that they build these boxes, this nut that's in the back here, on most like X-Forces Dave Mades and my stuff, we'll take a piece of braid and go from this nut down to the board. Well, they figured out they don't need to do that, and they just let the case carry all the current. The problem is the way their board design is set up is that you get a flexible joint down the sides of the cabinet. So as you're driving down the road and this thing's going boom, 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 bouncing down as you're going down the road, the board's flexing. Well, it'll cause all these solder tacks down the side of the cabinets over here, eventually flex and they'll crack, and so they're not conducting anymore. And I had an amp come in, and the guy goes, well, it only does blah, blah, blah watts. And come to find out, the only thing that was carrying any current to the entire amplifier, as the nut was up here, was the eyelets on the screws. The solder tabs, and one of them was broken.
Oh, shit.
So he had it was like a 16 pill or whatever, and all the current was trying to go through that one little solder tab.
Oh.
And all this other stuff was cracked and broke out.
Oh,
now, it was intermittently making contact as the amp was vibrating going down the road, but
yeah.
He's like, this thing is just not running right.
That's always some good solder joints there.
So I went through and I restitched that up, and then I had a ground braid to it, and that's all I had to do to fix the box. The only reason I mention that is because I've seen it where it's caused a problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can see where it would.
You do enough amps, and eventually that knowledge just starts to accumulate.
Oh, yeah.
And accumulate, and then you get to the point where you've got, 2,000 or 3,000, or in my case, 7,000, 8,000 boxes you've gone through. You've seen a couple failures, right? And so the trick is try to remember all the shit that you've seen break.
Yeah.
So let's slap some phenolic in the back of this while we're in here. Just help that out. It's a 2-minute thing to go in here.
Yeah.
Let's pop that ground nut off. We'll put a little bit of ground braid on there to help in the future. I mean, right now it's not going to help anything because you've got good case ground.
Yeah.
And believe me, this aluminum case is more than up to carrying the current. The total surface area of this case is more than adequate.
Is it?
Except when your solder joints all break.
Yeah.
The other thing I do with all of these is I pull the bottoms off, because I've had 3 of these now where they've come through, and when they put them together, they didn't even put one zip tie on the power wires on the bottom. And as the amp's once again sitting there bouncing down the road,
Vibrate, bear
the wire goes underneath the heat sink, and then the heat sink's sitting there rubbing on the wire, and then it rubs through eventually, or the amp gets hot enough in operation and melts the jacket, and the amp burns to the ground. Just for safety's sake, we'll flip the bottom off this thing too. Okay. All right. So we can see what I'm talking about now. This is the bottom side of this Dave. If we put one zip tie in here, we save ourselves from having a catastrophic car fire.
Exactly.
One zip tie. And I don't ever want to say anything negative about anybody here. I don't know. When I look at this, I go, well, they just didn't know any different. You know what I mean? It hadn't happened yet. But I had one where the guy had, like you and your other amplifier, had a fan quit, and he kept talking on it, and he didn't catch it, and the amp did get hot enough to where, there was a piece of wire that was sitting like this.
Mm-hmm.
And I had rebuilt the amp, but I never took the bottom of the amp off to look. Okay, so the lid was sitting on here, and it was smooshed down on a wire like this. Well, eventually it got hot enough to where it melted through the jacket, Well, once that happens, until you pull all the current off, you're going to have a meltdown. It's going to keep going until you can unplug it at the battery, right?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of our guys, they run fuseless systems, breakerless systems, right? I mean, you got to do that at a 16 pill. You're talking 400 or 500 amps. It's really hard to get a fuse or a breaker that's that big.
Yeah.
So it kept going. And the heat from that, then in turn, from it shorting out, the heat transferred into the heatsink and caused all the parts on the top side of the board to melt down.
Oh, yeah.
And then all the parts on the top side of the board fell off. And then we had a whole nother shorting issue because now we had one wire that was melting down. Then we had all the wires melting down at that point. But all of this here, all of this dirt, this is from it rubbing against the heatsink and vibrating. So let's go ahead. Let's put some 91% rubbing alcohol. Let's just go ahead and clean this up while we're here. Clean this up, zip tie this up, and make it all so it's safe. I mean, it's just. And now, ever since that one box that showed up in here,
Zip ties.
Yeah, we'll put 2 or 3, but. I mean, I'll pick the box up. I look down in the end of the thing with a flashlight, and I'm looking at all the wires because it's like, since I put the sticker on the front of the thing, I own it, right? It's my responsibility. Yeah. So if I don't see that these are tied up, no, we're ripping the whole board up because it's not worth the risk to me.
Yeah.
And there's too many sharp edges.
Oh, yeah.
Now, the other thing I'm going to tell you is this was made probably in the early 2000s, this box.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason I know that is because the heat sink is cut straight.
It's what?
Cut straight.
Oh.
Something happened about 2005, 2006. I spent way too much time looking at boxes, bro. 2005, 2006. Something happened, and now every single one of these heat sinks that come out of Joe's shop, they come out at an angle like a.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're cut at a slant. I don't know why.
Huh.
I don't know if it's a bearing in the bandsaw or I don't know. It's not square.
That'll be darn.
But this is what you learn through passive observation. Passive observation, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, so we zip tied and cleaned all the wire up, got all the crud off the wire, washed the heat sink. We just got done blowing it out. I washed the top part and got all the cigarette schmoo out of it. Now, you're like, well, why is the heat sink white? That's aluminum oxide. Now, there's a trick to get rid of that. Believe me, there's a trick to get rid of this. This thing's gonna look like new when we're done. Remember, it just came in here to get the fan fixed. All right. Okay, so we took a mile of wire out of the input network here for the power wire. And the tune on this thing is pretty darn close. Got it all cleaned up, re-cleared it. It looks like new in there now, doesn't it?
Yeah, sure does.
Amazing how that works, isn't it? Okay, so we've got ourselves a 1,000-watt slug here in 2X, 1,000 in average, and a 5-watt slug in reverse. We're running the bench 2-pill. 2950 hitting the bench 2-pill, hitting the Dave made 8-pill here. And we're on 14.915 volts, somewhere in there. So let's show you drive first off, everybody out there in YouTube land, because we've already seen all this already. So now we're in 1X, so otherwise 1,000 watt scale. At 220-ish watts worth of drive. Let's go up to 2X. Let's bring the amp online. Hello, audio. Hello, audio. Hello, audio. 21, 22, no problem.
That's sweet.
Okay. So I've already done the fan. The only left that I want to do is I want to clean the fan blades real quick, which will just take just a second. But the whole reason that your fans wouldn't turn on, remember the whole reason you came in here is the fans didn't work.
Yeah.
Because the one wire was broke off.
Right.
And that's from people taking the lid off and jerking on it. And it broke the lead off of the voltage regulator right here. So let's dispense with the bullshit. Let's clean and test fans and get this thing put back together. It's a busy afternoon over here, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is.
This
is a grindstone today.
This is a slow burn with the phone. I'm not kidding you. I've only gotten maybe 20 phone calls, 15 phone calls a day since you've been here. Okay, so this is where the rubber meets the road, bro. I hit 2-pill into 8-pill, and we're gonna see if the fan's dropping in RPM. Hello, 11111. Voltage regulator is doing its job.
Yep.
You happy?
I'm happy.
Let's move on to the next one. Sounds good? Sounds good. So now we've jumped onto an X-Force X800. And, all right. So, God, there's so much stuff going on here. It looks really pretty at first glance. You know that?
Yeah.
And then the more we start looking at it, we're like, wait a minute, what the hell? What the fuck? What's this all about? So there's a mystery switch. So the main reason he brought it to me is it was working fine. Customer states it was working fine, correct?
Right.
And then not working so hot because he was starting to lose his receive and thought he had a broken connection either in his jumpers or his antenna. He eliminated everything all the way down to the box, which makes you better than most because most guys immediately, automatically, full stop, full brake. I lost my receive. What's wrong with my amp?
Yeah.
And then come to find out they got 3 broken coax jumpers they've had since they were 2. And they're 80 years old, you know what I mean, kind of guys. So
And then it finally just quit keying altogether.
just stopped all the way together. So we're sitting here, we're discussing that, and then we start nitpicking the thing apart. Like, we're both, let's get close to it and put our faces in it and breathe the same air and look at the same things. My first objection to this entire situation is the relay is smaller than it should be by half. So this is a 2 driving 8. And honestly, I don't know what this auxiliary switch went to. But this is the lead that goes to our electrolytic for our sideband delay. It is not hooked to anything. This is the lead that goes to the mystery switch. Is also not hooked to anything, but that mystery switch, bro, goes around and goes to the, oh, well, why would you even have that? This loops around here. And this is this back lead, which turns around and goes to the key-in circuit side. And then on top of that, our on-off switch here, the leads for it are hanging on by a pubic hair worth of wire. So, yeah, but this attaches to where the key-in transistor's at over here on this side.
Sideband.
Down here, no. The yellow wire
Oh,
is for
yellow
the
wire.
relay.
Oh, the
is
black
for the
wire, yeah.
black wire is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So I bet you all you really need, the bare minimum to get this running safely, is going to be a bigger relay. And then we're going to have to redo all your wiring. And let's put a heavier duty relay in there, number 1, so we don't have to worry about shit breaking down anymore in the future, like the contacts getting completely effed off and stuff. And let's redo all your switch wiring in the front, which looks hokey as frig to me. I really think we should do a power wire upgrade on this. This, and this. And at a minimum, I think that we should probably put some metal clad caps in here. Because remember, $250 a piece Toshibas. So I don't know. It's here. You've rented me for the day, basically like a cheap Tijuanan prostitute. So if you're going to use me, let's use me thoroughly. Just as long as we don't rip anything and I need to get stitches, I'm comfortable with it. That's what she said. And I mean, there's a couple things like I'd love to put a 5-water here and a couple other things, but it's like not game changing, you know, like total neck breaking, can't let you go out the door. This has got to go. This has all got to be fixed so it's safe. This has all got to be redone. Otherwise it'll never work. So we'll change this, fix this. And if you'll let me, I'd love to change out these.
Whatever you think needs to be done to make it work.
Well, minimum is we got to fix all this cluster mess up here, and then we've got to change those. Minimum.
Okay.
And I don't know how this is even remotely right, inductor length, but we'll see how it runs. It might, the amp just might want it because of the length of the coil here. Oh, I believe you.
Get almost 2 out of it.
Oh yeah, I believe it. Probably 18 some change.
Yeah, 18, 15, 900. It depends on which radio. Driving it with that General Lee, you know, how they are.
Right.
It really woke her up.
How about we just make it work, then we'll test it, and then we'll change a couple things, and we'll see how much more we can get out of it just by changing a small couple things.
Okay.
All right, let's do that. Okay, let's do switches and relay.
Okay.
All right. As I was sitting here doing some of the solder work on the switches, you guys, I'm like, this wire is really stiff. And then I started thinking, I wonder, you know, because for that short time, Arland ran out of Teflon, and he was using that marine wire that looked like Teflon, but you put soldering iron into it, it'd melt, or get over a couple hundred degrees and wire would melt. I thought I should probably give it the wire test. Like, that's not Teflon either, I don't think. Let's see here. And this is the wire test, y'all. Check it out. Ready? Okay, didn't melt. Teflon, 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 Teflon. Well, this just got to become a dangerous issue now. So all the wire that makes up all the keying circuit in the back side of this thing is solid core. It's solid core. So we're going to pull all this wire out. This has all got to come out. All the wire going up to the remote plug has got to come out. Think about it. It's like solid core coax. Do you put solid core coax in a mobile?
No.
Why not? Because it fucking breaks, right?
Yeah, it'll break.
It'll break.
Yeah.
So now why would we want to have solid core wire on our 12 volt leads?
We don't want it because it'll break.
It'll break, right. So
That's braided.
all this has got to be changed.
That's braided.
It's like this is stranded. This here's stranded.
Yeah.
But okay, let's
That's solid core there, isn't
you know, let me reach over here and grab some Teflon. I was telling you how expensive this shit is per foot.
it?
It's crazy, right?
Yeah. Oh well.
How much did you say that first 2x4 I built you way back in the millennia ago was? It was like 400 or something bucks, right?
It's $465. I remember right.
465 if you remember correctly, and that
Yeah.
was a 220, 290 Toshibas, driving 4 Toshibas, right?
Yeah. 2879. No, I think that's 2879s all the way through, isn't it?
I don't. Don, I think you were probably within the first 100 customers I had, like when I started the business, maybe 150 customers. That was
Probably had to be like
that was
10 years ago.
That was 3,000 something amps ago, bud. I don't. I'll believe if you tell me. I'd have to go look up your YouTube video to find out.
Same one channel Cass got. His Catmobile.
His 2290's driving 4.
I mean, so it does
8, 900.
750. Yeah.
750, 8?
750, 800. If I drive on my General Lee, I'll see 900 out of it. I'm just driving the Cobra 148. It's right there at 8 on my bird meter.
God, you're making me feel old. Okay, let's do work. Let's pull the solid core out and let's start anew. Right? Start anew.
Okay.
While he's out having a smoke. I want to tell you that Don has been a friend of mine and a friend of the radio community for the better part of a decade. And he's one of the guys that helps me put on the brake over here. Well, him and his brother and a couple other guys are actually the ones that do the entire brake for the most part. And without them, I wouldn't be able to have that for the community. Him and his brother were the ones that came to me and said, hey, let's take this out of Tom's backyard, old Bakerman's backyard, and really helped motivate me to push it into being a bigger brake for. Sorry about that. Microphone just popped off the shirt. Motivated me to push it into being. This is all solid core too. What the? Motivate me to turn it into. I'm a little bit bigger function for everybody, and so for that I'm eternally grateful. to my friend Don that's here with us today. And he's killed, not killed, that'd be a bad word to use. He's needed work done on all of these pillboxes for a long time. And he just happened to be coming over here, and I'm like, bud, come here. So, he's just a damn nice guy. Him and his wonderful wife. So, I thought instead of me having to explain things to him, I could explain things to both, you and him. And I hope you guys are enjoying this adventure. And Don, whenever you do sit down and watch this video, I want to say thank you for coming over and spending the afternoon with me. And hopefully we get you all fixed up and you're happy. So this is your new 35 or 30 amp relay that we're going to put in here. This is actually the right relay for the job. Not this little thing. This is good for a 2x4, maybe a 6 bill at the most. Then after that, you got to go to a bigger relay, bigger contact points. More shmoo. More shmoo. Okay, here we go. Okay, so you know how to read an antenna analyzer, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this is mine, and one of the functions it is an antenna analyzer. It does a bunch of other stuff. So we're going to set this up so we're pretending like it's a radio. Okay. And we're going to see a chart on here that's going to pop up in a second. And it's going to show us from 0 megahertz to 58 megahertz. And it's going to show us what kind of SWR we have going from here down through the box and then out to the dummy load. Well, we know the dummy load is going to have a perfect 1.2 SWR, right? So the only thing that's going to be affecting it, I got one more thing I got to add to this before we can test it. I got to build you a new key-in circuit real quick. So let me grab a 1N or a 2N 222 key-in transistor, because this capacitor goes through the transistor to ground.
Oh yeah.
We've got to measure all the capacitance in the circuit. So because you have this huge impedance bump, the wire coming in and going through the relay, coming up through the contacts, going through the tabs of the relay, across this bar, back around and then back out, we have to compensate for that with capacitance. Otherwise, your amp will show you, on the radio side, with the amplifier off, will show you have an SWR of 2. And also, the side effect to that is, you won't be able to hear dick all. So think about how well your antenna works with an SWR of 2. It don't work, does it?
No.
No. So you're not hearing very well, right?
Nope.
Because the RF doesn't want to come out, hit the antenna and be resonant, go down the antenna and come to the radio, right? Well, the same thing is happening here. If the RF comes from your antenna on the receive side and it's going through a 2 SWR, now we're talking micro watts at this point, right? Millionths of a volt, millionths of a watt, small amount of power. Well, if you don't change and make it so that this is 50 ohms, you're deaf, dumb, and blind. Your amp transmits like a mofo. Yeah. You can't hear for shit. So how we measure that is with an antenna analyzer. We know that the dummy load's a good measure.
Right.
So we'll twist this part in here. Let's grab this here. all of this makes a difference. So I mean, the keying circuit's the simplest thing in the world, but I can remember when I was a kid this giving me fits on how this actually worked. It's the simplest thing in the world. This capacitor lets a little bit, just a little bit of energy be built up, and it's just enough to key that transistor, which then in turn switches to this leg. But what people don't think about is this leg on the keying circuit and this leg are also tied together internally in the transistor, and so it sees this capacitor that's touching our center conductor.
Right.
So for us to properly tune the pass-through, we have to put the whole keying circuit into play. I did that like I've done it once or twice, eh?
Yeah.
I didn't even get that. I'm all bragging like I'm the badass, and I didn't even get it. There we go. Let's get it the rest of the way. Okay. So now that we have all the basic components of the amp circuit in play, keying circuit, so on, now we can do this test over here. So turn this on. So right now we've got a pass-through going through the box at 27 megahertz, channel 6, of an SWR of 1.59. That makes sense? That computing to you?
Yeah.
So this little green hash mark that's here in the middle,
Mm-hmm.
you see up here, 27?
Yeah.
Okay, and then all the way over here at 53 megahertz, which doesn't matter to us. If this had a perfect little dip and went down to 0, we'd be perfectly happy, but this here. So my brain looks at this very quickly, but then I go over here and I look at this over here in this corner, specifically this top line. And it tells me that it wants about 47 to 44 puff worth of capacitance. You're like, how the hell is he getting all of that out of them little symbols? Right?
Yeah.
Practice, practice, practice.
Right.
Practice, 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 practice. So we'll grab two 25 puff capacitors. We're going to hook them up in parallel, which will get us around 50 puff, and that's going to put us pretty close, I have a feeling. So just tell that to run. So now it's constantly pulsing a little bit of a signal from 0 all the way to 53 megahertz, constantly through the amplifier. I touch the cabinet and I touch this leg. See that?
Oh yeah, it dropped right down.
Yeah, right? All the way down to 1.095.
Wow.
Right? We could probably tweak this and get it a little bit lower, but you'll find that your coax length is going to change your SWR at that point more than this.
Yeah.
So we'll stop running the machine. Let's disconnect it real quick. And then what I'll do is I'll take and I'll put a little hooky in this deal. Put a little hooky in here. So I can hook it over. This is how you tune your pass-through tune. So when you hear me say on video, pass-through tune, this is what we're talking about.
Is it basically the same as the input tune?
Yeah, but the input tune is a different level of capacitance at a different place. This is the pass-through, the RF that's passing through the amplifier. This is how we adjust that tune.
Okay.
This is here on the box. Oh shoot, sorry guys. Here on the box, I'm over here working like crazy. Here on the box is how we do our output tune, and then over here on the amplifier on the front, that's how we do our input tune.
Okay.
Relay keys latches up this coax. RF comes all across. It goes through our variable, out through our variable, and this capacitor here is what we adjust to change our input tune.
Oh, okay.
Then with this, remember, this is one amplifier all by itself. So This little 2-pill, this is your input tune adjustment point. This is your output adjustment point for the 2-pill section. So RF comes out of here, goes up here to the splitter. Now, this is right here is where your input adjustment is for this entire 8-pill section.
Okay.
Is right here at the end of this coil.
Mm-hmm.
So with inductance and capacitance, you can tune anything. You can even tune up a wood fence post.
Yeah.
You're not going to talk across the block,
Yeah.
but your radio is going to be like, I'm perfectly happy.
You can still tune it.
So that's where the magic comes into play, is understanding how to make the rest of this super resonant that you get the most out of it, and vice versa, the most out. I like to think of this as two sections. Your input is its own separate universe. Its output section of the 8-pill section is its own separate universe. So, but they're tied together through the device and through our flybacks. If your output isn't resonant, it's going to show up as massive input reflect. If your input isn't resonant, you're not going to get any performance out of the component.
Right.
So you got to have this right to be able to tune this in properly. Then we have our output tuning stages, which is here and here, and then totally right here. Inductor coil, and then capacitor to drive this back down to 50 ohms.
Copy that.
Copy that. Well, you asked the question, I went down the rabbit hole with you.
Yeah.
And I feel like I say this
Ain't
about
gonna learn if you don't ask
40
questions.
times a day on video, but you know, it dawns on me, hey, I did a video about XX bird meter or whatever. And so then somebody else comes along 6 months later and says, you know, it'd be really handy if you did a video on XX bird meter. Well, I go, I did do a video on that. What drives me nuts is instead of them going, oh, okay, cool, thanks, and then going off and going into YouTube and going BBI amps, and then what their question is, and seeing if I did a video on it, they come back, hey, can you find that video for me? So now I got to go find a video, I got to copy the link, I got to send it to them.
Oh, yeah.
But it's quicker than having to explain it to them. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
exactly.
So, or they'll come on, no, really, you need to do a video on this. I already have. No, you haven't. You have. No, you haven't. I've searched for it. I couldn't find it. You got two things that are going on there. One, they're telling you that you're fibbing to them for no reason whatsoever. I got no motivated reason to lie to this guy about a video or anything, right? But then the next thing is they're not entering it into the search engine, whatever, and Google's saying it's not there. So then I got to go find it, one, to defend myself, and two, pass the knowledge along. Fun, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's hook this up. All I wanted to do is show you your pass-through tune and how that worked. How do we go down this rabbit hole for 15 minutes, bro? Okay, so will you hit the start run button for me? And let's see how this affects your pass-through tune, what we just did. Poof.
Oh, right there.
Drops it down to nothing.
Yeah.
So it's a 1.045.
05 now.
So now we can talk straight through the box, no problem. Okay, so we've also discovered as we're going along that the wire going in and out of the box was solid core. And this is all solid core. These jumpers can stay solid core, but let's go ahead and let's run 5 more pieces of wire and let's get this thing ready to go.
Good.
We're so busy talking and carrying on, we're not even paying attention to what we're doing over here. We got a key in and stuff, you guys, and I noticed the sideband delay doesn't do anything, so I'm like, well, why not? Here's the capacitor. Oh, look at that. The capacitor goes directly to the ground. So what's the point of even having the sideband delay in there? I'm telling you, brother, drugs are bad, aren't they?
Yeah, it ain't gonna work that way.
Man. All right, so where this has got to go is we got to attach this to this lead, the relay over here. It's got to go right there. So that's got to go over there. What the shit, man? All the wiring's wrong. Nothing's hooked up the way it should be. You were talking on this, right? This thing's been running.
Yeah.
Okay.
I never run sideband.
All right. Well, let's fix it. Fuck it. This is almost comical at this point, bro. Okay, so we're busy talking, and I'm not even paying attention. So we got the capacitor figured out over here. All we had to do was add one wire. Now we've got delay. But it was like I was telling my buddy Don here, this ain't never going to work. He goes, what do you mean? I said, because no matter how I have this switch orientated here on the front, the LED is going to stay on all the time. He goes, well, what do you mean by that? Coming your way, Don. let's go in here and let's go look at the switch. When the thing was built, the switch was correct. He put the right switch in here. On focus, you turd bucket. Thank you. He put the right switch in here, but he didn't hook it up. None of them leads have ever been soldered to. So the way this works is you move the capacitor. We put the capacitor on one side. We use the LED lead to bridge the two leads on top. So we have the hot come in down here on the bottom corner. Then the power for the LED go out, and then the power go over here to the relay or over to the capacitor off the other side. So when the switch is down, there's no mechanical connection back to the LED. Otherwise the LED will be on no matter what we do.
Yeah.
That was never wired right from inception. I still want to know what this did. No clue.
I don't have a clue
All right, let's
why it was even put in there.
let's undo this.
Unless it'd be a high low.
I mean, that's pretty obvious that was never even done.
Yeah.
But grab the mic and just punch the mic. Good. Okay, we'll call that a win for the A-team. All right, let's tune it and test it. Yay. Okay, so quick review, and then we got to go on to the last box. I'm starting to run out of steam for amps for the day. So here's the problem. You guys remember the yellow wire? I remember the yellow wire. I was there when I took it out and when I seen it. You guys remember the yellow wire? This is our yellow wire. Right, here, hold on to that.
Rubber wire.
Yeah, hold on to that. Hold it over here so everybody can see what we're doing. Yeah. Rubber wire.
Catch on fire.
Burn your shit down wire. And then we got solid core wire. Well, we ain't got any of that anymore. And then we figured out a couple other things. We got to do the power wire upgrades in it, and it helped a little bit, not a lot, but helped a little bit. We did the power wire upgrades in it. Then we started running it, and we have 5 watts of input reflect coming back to the meter. Now I got about 3/4 of a watt. I had one too many turns on the input transformer, 1 too many turns on the output transformer, and too much capacitance here, and about 35 puff higher than what he should have had here. Okay, so other than small relay, right? Sideband delay not hooked up. All the wiring in the front end of the box all borked. The driver's section all a mess. And full of stranded wire. This is a great box.
Yeah. It is now.
Okay, I think we got one more X-Force to go, don't we? Please tell me it's something simple like just a blown pill, right?
I forget what was wrong with that one.
All right, we'll figure it out. Here we go. Okay, so we're on the last one now. And got ourselves, man, that was a good dinner.
Yeah, it was. Excellent dinner.
I'm telling you, that place across the street makes some good food. Okay, so we got ourselves a 2 driving 6. It's 2 2290s driving 6 2879s. And tell me a story how you came into possession of this thing. How'd you end up coming across this? Do you remember?
I think I bought it off eBay.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
How long did it run?
Oh, it ran quite a while.
Cool. Well, if I'm not mistaken, this one's put together by Forrest Gump. This is an X-Force rebuild. And I see some things in here we're going to change right off the hop, but the biggest thing that I take concern with are these capacitors here. It's because we've got our output transformer, and the ground side is attached to the input transformer. And to me, this is incredibly dangerous. One, that the can itself is riding on the edge of the input transformer, which is 12 volt positive, the outside of the can's ground. All it's got to do is rub through this. I personally have some problems with that. Oh, whole camera system just reset. Yeah, I got some problems with that, so I think we're going to remove this. I don't feel too comfortable with that. As we can see over here in the corner, we've got ourselves a popped set of resistors. We'll zip on in here.
Bad pill.
Yeah, no, that tells us that we got a problem in this section here. Bad pill, and of course we're going to do our little bit of power wire upgrade. And this is a must. These capacitors are way too small. Just way too small for what we're wanting to do here. So we'll change that out. And then I'd like to go to a tuning tube over here. We're here in a corner over here by the relay. We're going to probably get rid of this disc, and we'll go to a tuning tube like what was in the other amplifier. A little bit higher kV, a little bit more reliable. So let's go ahead. We'll strip these caps out of here, and we'll pop the two pills out in this section, and let's take a look for it. Let's see where we sit. I know we're tired. We know we're done. You've seen everything. We went through everything, but they don't know the end of the story.
Right. You got to give them the ending story.
Although I think I've done that, literally done a YouTube video and forgot to put the end on it. If you can screw this up, I think I've done it.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I put segments in, like, because I'll work on 3 or 4 different things all at the same time. I'll have segments that aren't even relevant to what I'm working on in whatever topic video, and it'll slide itself in there and nobody says anything. I did one video where there was 47 minutes of just black. And people, I literally looked at the statistics. People were literally watching the thing all the way to the very end to see if there was anything else. Like it was a Marvel movie, and all of a sudden, oh, the very end, oh, here's 5 more minutes of content. And no, it was simply something YouTube screwed up on. Okay, so let's see. What are the struggles that we came up with? We discovered the best fake Toshiba transistors we've ever seen in our life.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Don showed up here with a bag full of goodies. And some of the goodies he threw down on the table were fake as frick. I mean, they were fake as fake, right? But we really had to look at them.
Yeah.
Let's see.
They almost look like the real McCoy.
So much little stuff. So anyhow, we ended up having to put new coax connectors on here because they were bad. Power wire upgrade. We tied these 2 bars together, the 2 distribution bars internally together. So we, just in case if one wire came off, like the one that feeds the 2-pill section, the amp would not explode and melt down into flames of glory. We replaced the 500 volt tuning capacitors that were on each one of the output sections and replaced them with metal clads. I removed the frickin' blue electrolytics that had the back side of the input transformer and the back side of the output transformer literally tied together. I've never in all my days seen that. And I don't know what that's supposed to do. I'm afraid to even test it. $250 a piece transistors, I don't want to know. I might try it on an HG box next week, but it ain't happening tonight. This is all stranded wire. Everything in here was stranded, so we didn't have to go through that little bit of the venture. It's got all the right parts in all the right places. Got rid of the little output disc capacitor over here. Got rid of that little tiny capacitor, went to the output tuning tube. And then the last little bit of the freak show is this is a voltage regulated fan up here. Come on, get it in frame, pay attention when I'm tired. I'm really ready to be done. Hey, you hadn't lived life until you spent 12 straight hours working on. Anyhow, the voltage regulator up here on the fan was getting so hot it was going into nuclear meltdown mode and shutting the fans down because the fans are pulling way more current than the regulator is rated for. So to overcome that, we added another voltage regulator and then put a heat sink on the big one. And the heat sink took it from being a 180 degree voltage regulator to a 145 degree voltage regulator, which means it will survive. Yeah. It will survive. Okay, well, let me put the lid on it. Let's get some air moving on it, and I'm going to change batteries real quick, and we'll test it. Oh, it's done. Now plug this puppy in. Hook it up. Hook up that Anderson clip, my man. So we figured out, is that blood or is that coffee, you think?
I don't know.
And those transistors are...
Around my radio stuff when I'm in the Radio Shack, I don't drink coffee or nothing in there.
You don't ever get parched?
Huh?
You don't ever get parched?
Oh, I do, but I'll go out and get a drink. I don't bring it in with me.
Man, them are some badass fans.
Move some air, doesn't it? Feel like air coming
Man.
out of there.
So, okay. You're gonna scoot down there, my man. All right, so shut the fannies off. Jet turbines that are in this thing. So we're 1,000 watt slug here. 1,000 in average, 5 watt slug in reverse. This is our voltage going in. Oh, about 25 watts going in this puppy. The variable's all the way open. Oh, now we knew that was going to happen. Put it on a stop peg. Oh, 1-1. Oh, 1-1. I think you are all back and running. Now, for their hearing pleasure, I'm going to kill that down. So, first off, to all my friends in the radio world that are watching this on YouTube Boobler, I want to personally apologize for the bad cinematic angles that you guys have had to look at. Because normally I'm like, here, let's look at this, and here, let's look at that, and I take the camera with me wherever I'm going to go. I 2 or 3 times where I just left the camera and I'm over here talking about something else in the box and the camera's focused over here. So I want to apologize you all for that, and I want to say, Mr. Don, thank you coming up and spending the afternoon with me and giving me the opportunity to go through all your boxes. I mean, we got...
I definitely thank you, Mr. Brother Luke, for getting me all fixed back up too.
We got 4 out of the 5 done. That 5th one is gonna... It got hot. That's a full day's worth of work on that one, but yeah. So you happy?
Yeah, I'm happy. All right, brother.
Let's get up here and shake hands. Yeah, okay.
There we go. Yeah,
Yeah,
we're done. We're
Here,
done.
here, we'll do it across camera. You ready? Here, so they can actually see us. Do it crossed camera.
There we go. Yeah.
So what year is this on the break that we're doing here in a couple weeks? What year is this?
Oh God.
Well, last year, like the 21st or 20th or something like that.
Be my eighth or ninth year.
Yeah. I come in like 10 years ago. But what's the actual official number? It's like 20th or something, 21st?
I think 21st.
Yeah, annual Baker Man Break, Rooster Rock State Park, September 4th. We will have a little shootout, and we're going to have a little bit of food, and then we're going to do some raffle prizes, and we're all going to go home.
Yeah.
For all y'all that made it to the very end here, I want to say thanks for tuning in and bearing the grin and staying with us.
Yeah.
We got 80 minutes of video out of 10 and a half hours worth of work.
Oh yeah.
No, really.
Shit.
No, really. I do this for the YouTube money. Really.
Oh, yeah.
Really. No, man. YouTube doesn't pay me nothing.